And I see that we have 6 people attending, so I'm going to just give people time to join because there are, last I knew there were about 14 or so. Do you just see me, Lisa? Okay. As long as you can see what I'm demonstrating, I think that's how this will work best. I don't think that, I actually have not worked with this type of Zoom account before, so it's a little bit different. I think that you will not necessarily all be able to see each other, but as long as you can see what I'm guiding, then that should work. And if you do, I'll just encourage people now, and I'll say this again before we get started. If you have a question or if something comes up, I will keep an eye on the chat so you can type something in as needed. And those of you who are here already, if you would have, we will use in our practice tonight a blanket. I know some of you probably already have that available. We may sit on it. You might want to cover up with it or just use it as padding underneath a knee or underneath your back. So have a blanket available. Hi, Liz, I see your message. Thank you. It's a slightly different format. So I think in this format, we won't be able to necessarily see one another, but as long as you can see me and see what I'm guiding and demonstrating, you should be good. I can't actually see all of you too. I just have a list of how many people are here. It's a little bit, some different Zoom accounts function in different ways. And this is one that, because it's set up as a webinar, we can more easily live stream it and more easily post it to the HHLC website when we're done, but we won't see each other while we're practicing. Julia and I are testing it out. This is my first time using this format, and it may be her first time too. She and I tested it together the other day. So those of you who are preparing for class, just take your time, settle in, have a blanket on hand. If you need to just have some water or a warm drink or something nearby, take a moment and gather those things. Our practice tonight will be gentle. We'll have a little bit of end with a restorative posture. And I know that we have a couple more minutes and potentially a few more people who may be joining. So I'm going to give everybody some time. Nobody feels hurried or rushed. Great, I see the numbers going up. So I know at least one other person has just joined us, so welcome. I know that you probably can't see anybody else, but as long as you can see me okay, and are able to follow along with what I'm demonstrating, you should be in good shape. And there is a chat that you can use to communicate if you need to. If there's anything you need to check in about before we practice or anything you'd like to ask or say, you are welcome to do that anytime. All right, everyone, it is time for us to get started. There may be a few more folks who are joining us as we go, so I may just pause every now and then just to check and see if there's anybody new on board. Um, some of, oh, I see numbers going up as we speak. Some of you have heard me say this already, but for those of you who haven't, this format is a little bit different than one that I normally work with. I can't actually see you. I can see just how many people have joined us. But as long as you can see what I'm guiding and you have a full view of my mat, which is right back here, and should be in good view, and a full view of how I'm moving and what I'm talking you through, we should be in good shape. There is a chat function on this version of Zoom, and you're welcome to type in any questions that you might have. I'm going to try and keep an eye on that. And I'll come up close to the screen periodically just to check and see if anything is happening. If there's anything in particular that you need me to know about as we get started, we're going to start off with a little bit of a meditation. So if there's anything you need me to know physically, or any questions that you have or concerns, you're welcome to type that into the chat, and you can type it to the whole group or you can type it to me directly. So welcome. It seems like it's been a long time waiting for this end of the year. It's been quite a year for most of us. And there's a lot happening, I think, right now with this solstice, a lot of astrological changes, a lot of astronomy going on in the sky. Just it feels like a good time to pause and consider where we are, where we've been, and where we're all going. I know that the Harpswell Heritage Land Trust has a whole host of activities that you can choose from as part of their winter solstice celebration. Most of you probably know that since you're here, but if you haven't taken a look at their website, there are lots of great ideas and things that you can do today or in the weeks to come. So I encourage you all to take a look at that. Let's begin our practice in a seated position. Some of you may be sitting in a chair and you're welcome to stay there. You may be sitting on the floor, and as long as you're comfortable there and you feel like you can sit with a long spine, so in other words, not kind of collapsed into your abdomen and rounded in your back, then the floor is a great option. Sometimes people will sit cross-legged and sometimes in a kneeling position. You also might sit with your back touching the wall. And as you sit, let's just move the body a little bit so that you get a sense of what your body's feeling, what you're bringing with you structurally into practice, and then we'll come into some guided breath work and meditation. Rest your hands on your knees and just begin to circling the rib cage primarily, feeling your way around. Notice any sensations that your body feels as it moves, sensations of resistance or craving, release. Notice what moves and what doesn't. And then see if you can change direction, circling the other way around, maybe the non-habitual way. And feel how the patterns of sensation shift right along with your movement. And we'll bring some attention from the mid part of the body and the spine up into the neck and the shoulders. Let your circling slow down until it pauses. And then lift your shoulders up toward your ears. Feel that elevation. Roll them down the back of your body and then scoop them forward and up again. Just letting the shoulders shift a little bit in their movement. Notice any stickiness that might be present in the space between your shoulder blades. Any sensations in your chest or your upper arms. And the next time you have your shoulders up by your ears, leave them there. Take your hands and just press them down on your knees a little bit. Lengthen your spine. So notice how the muscles of the shoulders and upper back can actually help you lengthen the spine, but let's not get them stuck in that position. Can you continue to keep the spine long, but let the shoulders melt down? So the shoulder blades feel like they're drawing down the back a little bit. So now you're sitting with length, especially here, but release down through the back. We'll bring some attention to the neck. Let your chin come down toward your chest and roll your head over toward the right side. Bring your ear over your shoulder. And then traverse across your chest again and bring your left ear over toward your left shoulder. And just go back and forth here from side to side, feeling the movements of your neck and how that can spill down into your back, your shoulder blades, your arms. There might be noise associated with this movement, the sounds of the bones in your neck as they move. As long as there's no pain or discomfort or strain associated with the sound, let the sound be there. But if it's connected to a disruption in movement or a feeling of strain in the neck, be gentler. Don't quite pull your head as far to the side. Limit your range of motion. And the next time you bring your chin back to midline, let your head lift up. Chin is level with the floor. Notice if your shoulders have lifted and just let them drop back down. Let the ribs lift up off of the hips, especially the back bottom ribs. And then imagine that this lifting of the rib cage creates an openness in the abdomen, upper abdomen, lower abdomen. And imagine that breath could now move in and out of that space. So start to breathe a little deeper down into your belly. And we'll begin to build what's called Dirga Pranayama, or 3-part breath. Breathing into the abdomen, feeling movement in the diaphragm right underneath the ribs, and all the way up to the collarbones, top of the chest. So you're filling your body like you're filling a vase or a glass of water from the hips up. When you feel full, just pause for half a second and then reverse the breath. Exhale from the collarbones all the way down. It often takes several rounds of this breathing for it to feel comfortable and deep. So give it some time. Notice how the muscles of the mid body, from the bottom of the rib cage to the top of the hips and pelvis, respond to your breathing. As you inhale, can they soften enough that there's expansion and a little bit of stretch? And when you exhale, can they engage enough that they draw back to support the spine's length so that as you sit, you don't find yourself kind of rounding down and getting tired? As you settle into this breathing practice, notice what's happening inside of your mouth. Imagine that your tongue could be soft wherever it sits, whether it's touching the back of your teeth or resting against the roof of the mouth or the floor of the mouth. Let the tongue be soft. The whole muscle of the tongue relaxes, and this will help to relax the throat. And as you practice this breathing technique for a little bit longer, I'm going to begin with a reading. This is a poem by Rilke, but it's been translated by David White. This is called You, Darkness. You, darkness from which I come, I love you more than all the fires that fence out the world. For the fire makes a circle for everyone that no one sees you anymore. But darkness holds it all, the shape and the flame, the animal and myself, how it holds them, all powers, all sight. And it is possible. Its great strength is breaking into my body. I have faith in the night. As it begins to darken now on this longest night of the year, let your breath stay steady. See if you can feel back into the experience of 2020. And as you breathe, can all of those experiences shift and move within you? The feelings of acceptance, the feelings of fear, the feelings of uncertainty, feelings of both distance and closeness. Can you sense into what has changed and what is changing still? And can you let the breath come and go, filling the body from the pelvis up to the shoulders and emptying from the shoulders all the way back down with a very fluid wave-like motion. Allowing for space to contain everything that was and everything that is. Allowing for the space to open up to whatever will be. Let's begin the movement portion of our practice with a little bit of releasing. I'm going to move back to my mat and I'll occasionally come up close so that I can demonstrate right in front of you. We're going to start off in a seated position on the floor. And if you would sit with your feet on the floor, knees apart, hands can support you from behind a little bit. So you can't really see my hands very well, but they're just on the floor behind my knees. I'm going to rock my knees from side to side. Just a little bit of rotation through the hips, upper legs, and lower back. You might feel this as a quad stretch. In fact, now that we have all this glorious snow, at least for now, you may have gotten outside this weekend and moved your body in ways that you're not used to or that you haven't done since last year. So you might notice if you were skiing, maybe there's a feeling of deeper stretch in your quads. Or if you were snowshoeing, you might feel some release in the outer hip. Notice all of those areas. And as you turn, you'll find that the arm behind, that trailing arm, is lifting off the floor. Can you sweep it around and bring it alongside your ear? And now you're extending a little more into the side body. There are several variations of this movement that we'll play with tonight. What you should know is that if any variation doesn't feel right, go back to the one you were doing before. So if this feels fine, but the next one doesn't, go back to this. So as you're swinging from side to side, see if you can lift your hips and pelvis up off the floor. So now you're balancing on one hand and a knee. And that's going to give a little more extension into your side body, a little bit more work for the large muscles that move the joints and the small muscles that stabilize them. Now, the next time you have your right hand and right knee on the floor, see if you can stay there, reach into the overhead hand, press into the other foot, bring your knee back a little underneath your shoulder so you're getting a lot of length in the body. And if it feels good, lift that left foot off the floor. Again, if any of this feels like it's too much, especially for your right wrist, it's okay to stay with your seat on the ground and just reach. Can your breath deepen? Can you find three-part breath here where the alignment is a little bit different? And on your next exhale, lower back down. Let your knees rock to the other side. Same thing here. We're going to lift the hips if you can. Take your right arm alongside your ear. Reach your right foot toward the floor. Bring your left knee back underneath your hip. Extend. And as I said on the other side, you can absolutely do this sitting on the floor. So this is a posture called half circle pose. As you breathe, imagine the circle of an entire year. We're coming close to new beginning. Can you breathe into the potential of that? And as you exhale, feel the contraction of muscles along the spine, just expelling whatever is old. Whatever was useful for a time and now is ready to move on to the next thing, the next becoming. One more breath. And as you exhale, lower all the way back down. Lift the knees, feet on the floor, just gently swish them from side to side, harmonizing what you've done. We're going to follow the lead of the knees a second time. I'm going to demonstrate this facing two different directions. So I'm going to drop my knees over to the right, and then I'm going to turn my upper body around and bring my hands behind me. I'm going to flip my whole self around now so I can continue to face you from the back. The posture looks like this. Hands are on the floor, arms long. Glue your hands to the ground and then pull them toward your hips without letting them move, and feel how that lifts the ribs. Feel how the torso becomes a little longer. Now, as you hold this twisting posture, the closer your knees and feet are to one another, the milder the sensation will be in your lower back. The further apart your legs are, the bigger the stretch, the bigger the sensation. So adjust your body so that the stretch and the sensations are appropriate. A little bit of gentle discomfort is okay. Pinching, burning, piercing, straining are not great to feel. Can you come back to the 3-part breath? Your body will encounter the breath differently. The shape of your breathing spaces isn't quite the same in this posture. Let those muscles work. Can you wring your body out in many different directions? On your next inhale, turn to face forward. You're going to flip your knees over to the other side and walk your hands around behind you again, this time turning toward your left. Glue your hands to the floor, pull them toward your hips without letting them move, and feel that traction the spine, traction the muscles that run from the hips and lower back up to the rib cage, the spine, maybe even to the shoulder blades. Steady breath. Feel the fluid nature of the breaths coming and going. Most of this year has not really felt fluid for many of us. There have been stops and starts. There have been lots of pauses. There have been renegotiations of what is happening and what is okay and what is real. Can you drop into an underlying fluidity that serves all of the fluids of the body? Imagine the circulation of blood and lymph, cerebrospinal fluids, the fluid motion that keeps us moving, breathing, connecting. One more full breath in. And as you exhale, turn to face forward again. I'm going to bring us down onto our backs on the floor. We're going to do a little work with hips. So lying on your back, let's take the right knee in toward the chest. Pavana Muktasana, knee to chest pose. This posture is great for gently stretching the lower back. It's also helpful for the upper part of the hamstring, but even more than that, in places that we can't necessarily feel change happening, it's stimulating the digestive system. So this posture is primarily used for its most subtle effect. As you draw that right knee in, you're placing some pressure on the ascending colon, helping to keep everything moving through the lowest part of the digestive tract. Can you bring your breath down toward that right hip crease? And as you do, can you drop your shoulder blades back toward the floor, feeling that point of contact? The belly rises and falls as you breathe. Your tongue may try to engage again in your mouth. Often when we do something new or different, the muscles of the mouth turn on. They're the first muscles that we have any volitional control over in our bodies. An infant learns first to feed before it can hold its head up, before it can control any other movement. So when we move the body, there's always some kind of shift happening in the mouth. Can we let that shift be subtle and quiet and not overengaged? Now, as you're lying here holding the knee, we're going to begin to circle the leg a little bit. Keep your hands on the knee and circle the knee around with the support of the arms. And as you feel that circling action, assess its outcome in your body. There may be a little bit of pressure against the sacroiliac joint when it touches the floor. If that pressure is mild and it doesn't hurt, keep going. But if there's pinching in the hip crease or another form of deeper discomfort in the back or the hip, you may be happier just holding the knee still. Now, as you circle the knee around, some of you will find that this motion feels really good for the hip. It starts to lubricate the hip joint with synovial fluid. It starts to warm up and mobilize the muscles all around the upper leg. If it feels good, release your hands from your knee and start to grow the circles a little bit larger. Maybe bringing your knee out toward the floor on the right side. Maybe crossing over your left leg as it goes to the left side. And just circle around. Notice the sensations associated with the circling. As you grow your circle, it may not maintain a perfectly circular shape. That's okay. Now, the next time we have the knee crossing over the straight leg, I'm going to have you hold there. Bring your right knee over toward the left. Place your right foot along the inner edge of your left leg. And then with your left hand, draw your knee down toward the floor. Or if it's more comfortable, you can support your knee with your hand. Let me show you what that would look like. So if I'm coming across this way, maybe I don't want my knee all the way down on the floor. Maybe it needs support, so my hand is holding it in place. That will keep the sensations in the outer hip milder. The other option is to use your hand to draw the knee down. In either of those positions, can you reach your right arm out to the side, allowing the shoulder blade to drop back toward the floor? Even if it doesn't quite touch the floor, can it just descend? Can there be some gravity there? And then feel the ringing out as you breathe in and out of the reclining twist. Making space for whatever has yet to begin. Clearing out whatever has already run its course. When you reach your next breath in, elevate your right knee back up to where it started, and then release the leg to the floor and just pause for a moment, either with legs extended or with feet on the floor and knees bent, whichever feels safer and better for your back. Pause and notice. The slowing down of this time is a perfect recipe for that pause. Notice what you feel on the right side that may feel very different on the left. Notice how when we insert the pause, the mind sometimes gets very active. It thinks of all the things that are rolling around in there that didn't have a chance to surface when we were in motion. Notice how sometimes the mind gets quite still when the body stops moving. Can you observe all of that? Keep the breath flowing and just make space for whatever is there, the mental energy, the emotional tenor, the sensations in the body, whatever might be appearing in the surface of your awareness now. Let's see what happens as we explore the second side. Left knee will bend. Draw that in toward your chest, folding here, stimulating the descending colon on the left side. Bring your breath down toward that left hip crease. Now, it's entirely possible that you can fold your leg toward your chest on one side and that the other side won't allow it. Maybe there's a knee injury or something in the alignment of the hip. It's always okay to modify these postures. Even though they look very simple, there are times when our bodies may not be able to fold into particular forms. So you may be lying with your foot on the floor, your hip partially flexed, your knee partially bent. You may be lying with your hand behind your knee and the leg elevated if there's a knee injury. So modify the posture in a way that feels approachable for your body, a place where you can breathe into, keeping the fluid, wave-like nature of the breath going. The posture itself is a seat for meditation. If all of our energy is focused on perfecting the posture, then that's a lot of micromanagement and not a lot of being with whatever is unfolding moment by moment. So align your body in such a way that you can stay present, that you can drop in and feel sensation, and that the sensation doesn't overwhelm you in any way. And see what happens if we start to circle the leg, keeping your hands around or behind the knee, just circle around. Notice how the shape of this circle is different than the other one might have been. Now, having already released your hands on the other side and grown the circles bigger, you have an idea of what that feels like. There are times when I decide to keep my hands on my knee because that feels like a deeper exploration. And there are times when releasing the hand takes me deeper into the work. So you'll have to decide that for yourself based on the feedback your body offers. If it feels good to let the hands go, drop them to the ground and start to grow your circles a little bigger. When your knee comes over toward the right, you'll feel the left half of your lower back lifting off the floor as the pelvis twists a little and the spine rotates. These are all welcome movements. And the next time you have your knee over toward the right, pause there, hook your foot along the inside of your right leg, and then lower your left knee toward the floor, either supporting it with your hand from underneath or pressing it down with your hand from on top. Keep the right leg long and extended, the back of the knee open if you can, and breathe. And just feel the sense of breathing in, aware of breathing in, aware of the rise and changing shape of the body. Breathing out, aware of breathing out, aware of the sense of engagement along the spine or the sense of letting go in the organs and soft tissues of the body. Notice your left arm, shoulder, and shoulder blade. Let the shoulder blade nest itself down toward the floor. The feeling of gravity is prominent there. I'll read again from Rilke's poem. But darkness holds it all, the shape and the flame, the animal and myself. How it holds them, all powers, all sight. And it is possible. Its great strength is breaking into my body. I have faith in the night. If you're in a place where you can see the changing color of the sky, you'll notice the darkening blue-gray. Can you imagine breathing in the quality of night? On your next inhale, allow the knee to come back up again. Release the leg to the floor, either extended or with knees bent. Take 2 breaths. And from here, roll to one side. Make your way to hands and knees. This is a place where your knees might like some padding. If you have a blanket, you may put the folded blanket across your mat so your knees have something to kneel on. And I'm going to demonstrate what that looks like. And in this position, I'm just going to bring the spine up toward the ceiling. And then do the opposite, arch toward the floor. Lift your tailbone, lift your chin. Go ahead back and forth here a few times. Cat and dog stretches. Letting the spine articulate, flexion and extension of the spine in this particular plane. And the next time your spine is more neutrally aligned, pause there. Let your knees shift a little closer together. Step your hands an inch or so forward. And now let your hips drop to one side, then lift them up and bring them across to the other. And as you go from side to side, feel rotation through your back, extension of the outer hip. Feel the placement of your palms, fingers, and fingertips becoming a foundation of the body. When we rely on the arms, we move the body differently. How does your breath adjust to that? And the next time you swing your hips up, keep them up, and then separate your knees just slightly wider than your hips. We're going to step the hands forward, extend both arms, lower your forehead to the floor if you can. If it doesn't reach, that's okay. You can put something under your forehead, or you can let your head just be in space. Draw your tailbone back toward your heels without sitting down. So this is usually called puppy stretch. We're increasing the distance between the bottom ribs and the top of the pelvis. So can you breathe into that space? The belly might feel slightly hollow here. You may be noticing that you can breathe a little more into the lower back, that you can feel sensation in the outer edges of the ribs. When you arrive at your next inhale, lift your head off of the floor. Walk your arms closer together until your thumbs are touching with the arms extended in front of you. And now rotate your rib cage so one shoulder tucks under. Then lift it back up, tuck the other shoulder under, and turn the opposite way. As you go from side to side, notice if your range of motion increases with practice. So this rotation of the thoracic spine helps to release tension in the rotator cuff muscles and in the outer upper arms. Continue from side to side for a couple more rounds. And when you come back to midline again, we're going to slide the hands apart, draw them back so that they're under your shoulders. And now take your right foot and step it forward between your hands. This is a place where some of you might like something to put your hands on. Some of you may have yoga blocks, which you can put under your palms. A thick book will work, or a cushion. The left knee is on the floor, the right heel and sole of the foot is on the floor. We're just going to tuck the left toes, lift your knee off the floor, and then lower it. Maybe it touches, maybe not quite, and just go up and down a few times. Opening the front of your left hip. Can you feel down through your right heel? So that's where we find the stability. That's the unchanging nature of the posture, right down through that right heel, providing some stability for the rest of the body to align around. Can we sense that in our bodies in a world that's rapidly changing, in a time that none of us have experienced before? The next time you lift your knee, keep it lifted. We're going to push the heel toward the floor behind you and then back off of that a little. And then push into the heel and back off. Feel the calf stretch, feel the hamstring stretch and the opening in the back of the knee. So you're just pulsing back and forth. I'm going to have you hold the heel press, but start by pressing about 50%. And then decide if that's too much or not enough, and either increase the press or back off a little. We're going to put some weight down through the right heel and then slowly walk your hands up to the right knee. So now you're in an extended lunge position. Keep your right hand on your knee, reach your left arm forward, bring that arm up alongside your ear, drawing back into your thumb, pressing up into your fingertips. A lot of extension through the front of the left hip and into the abdomen. It's okay if your right hand touches a wall or the seat of a chair or something that helps you to maintain balance if you need it. It's also okay if you want to challenge yourself more and bring the right arm up. So you can extend both arms, or you can keep the right hand down for stability. Take one more breath in the extended lunge. Can you lift the back ribs off of the lower back? And then as you breathe out, fold forward, bringing your hands down to the floor, sink your left knee down, slide your right leg back, bring your big toes to touch, separate your knees, sit back for a moment, wide angle child's pose. Lower your head down toward the floor, breathe into your back. Much of the balance in our lives is sourced from engaging and then integrating. Child's pose offers us that possibility to fold up small and quiet, to limit what we're taking in through all of the sensory doorways, to breathe into what we've just done. And then we emerge from that again and we encounter the world in a different way, perhaps. And feel the side ribs move as you breathe. Feel the breath almost like a blanket over your back. When you reach your next inhale, gather your body back to all fours, a tabletop position. Let's invite that left foot forward between the hands. The right knee is on your blanket or your mat. We're going to tuck the right toes, lift the knee, and then bend it, ease it down. Lift it again and ease it down. When you bring the knee down, it may or may not touch the floor. You're just going through whatever range feels most helpful in your body, being attentive to all of the joints. The next time you lift your knee, hold it lifted. And now push into the heel and back off. And push into the heel and back off. So feel the calf stretch, feel the back of the knee, the hamstring, just a gentle rocking on the ball of the foot. The next time you press, just 50%. Is that too much? Is it perfect? Is it not quite enough? Adjust as needed. And then bring your left hand up to your knee. Bring your right arm all the way up alongside your ear. Extended lunge on the right side, opening up the front of the hip. The same area that we had folded into in knee to chest pose is now extended and open. Can you breathe down as if the breath had roots in the front of your hip? With your left hand, you can hold on to a chair, a wall, a countertop. You can bring the arm up alongside your ear. Can you lift the rib cage just a little higher? And can you keep the hips and pelvis low and the ribs lift a little higher? The pelvis stays low. One more breath. As you exhale, hinge forward, bring your hands down to the floor. This time, instead of stepping your left foot back, step your right foot forward, maybe a couple of small hops, and then come into a standing forward bend to let your head drop. Look toward your knees. Take a full breath in, a full breath out. I'm going to bring us into a version of the forward bend called elephant pose. So in this posture, all you're doing is swinging your hips from side to side. Your arms dangle. They're very soft, very relaxed, and hands will circle around the feet. Notice the sensations of movement in the upper body and stability in the lower half of the body. As you're going, if your lower back is unsatisfied with this movement, if it starts to strain, if it doesn't feel good, just fold forward, perhaps with your hands just above your knees or your elbows above your knees for additional spinal support. Those of you who are happy with elephant pose, swing a few more times. Feel the fluid nature of the breath trickle down into the arms, as if your arms were just moving through water. And slowly bring that motion to a pause. We're going to come up to standing from here. Let the knees bend just a little bit. Either walk your hands up the front of your legs or reach them forward. We're going to come all the way up, arms alongside the ears into mountain pose. And as you draw back through your thumbs, press up through the fingertips. Hold here. Feel where your body is stable. Your knees and your spine. If your arms are uncomfortable, you can have the hands wide or you can bring the arms down. Adjust mountain pose so you feel like you could stand here and just feel the energies of the world swirl around you. That here you can come into a place where you can start to take off the layers that are required in order to navigate the world. And that you can just stand in your own presence with the breath moving, with a sense of strength in the body, sense of purpose, and a sense of openness. If your arms are up, slowly start to bring them down. Bring your hands to your hips. Keep them there. Lift, push down on the top rim of your pelvis. Lift the rib cage. And then let your eyes close for a moment and imagine that you could take breath in and out right directly through the center of the chest. As the hands press down on the top rim of the pelvis, the spine stays long. Breathing in, aware of breathing in. Breathing out, aware of breathing out. And can you hold that sense of breathing directly in through the chest and release the hands from the hips? Keep the spine long. Guide your arms out in front of you. Bend into both knees, standing squat. Abdominal muscles draw back toward the spine for support. Take your upper arm bones and just nest them back into your shoulders so the arms reach forward, but they're stable in the shoulder. A little more weight in the heels than the balls of the feet, and let some heat and engagement build. If you need to take a break from this, you can always straighten the knees and release the arms and stand in simple mountain pose. Hold in the standing squat or chair pose, as it's sometimes called, for as long as your body is able to stay with it. So here we begin to increase the strength of the container of the self. Heat will build. The breath might deviate. Muscles may get tired. Stay with that. And when any one of those sensations is too strong, just go back to simple mountain pose and then reapproach the standing squat, building that charge, building that warmth in the body, preparing for whatever comes next. When you reach your next inhale, push into your feet, draw the arms all the way up, back alongside the ears, lift the back bottom ribs, and then exhale, hinge forward, fold down, hands toward the floor, let your head drop, look back toward your knees, standing forward bend. On an exhale, bend your knees, come back to the standing squat. As you inhale, press all the way up, mountain pose. This time, bring your hands together overhead. Hips shift to one side, hands reach toward the other. Can you lengthen with the arm that's underneath? So if you're arching to your left, it's the left arm. If you're arching to the right, it's the right arm. Breathing in, come all the way up. Breathing out, arch the other way. Releasing tensions along the sides of the spine, planting the feet firmly, squeezing a little through the inner thighs, equal weight in both legs. Breathing in, come all the way back up. Breathing out, come back to a standing squat. Little more weight in the heels. One breath in. As you exhale, bring your hands together in front of your chest. Take your right elbow over toward your left knee. If that doesn't work well for you, here's a modification. Put your left hand on your left hip, put your right hand on your left knee, and your right elbow on your right knee. So a supported twist. Breathe here across the middle back, especially into the back bottom ribs and the space just below the shoulder blades. Breath is steady and even as the shape of the body changes. With your next inhale, turn to face forward again. As you exhale, twist to the opposite side. Left elbow comes down to the right knee if you can. Otherwise, the forearm crosses the knees and the right hand is on your hip. Let the posture be stable. So if your elbow doesn't touch your knee and it feels like the hips, knees, or spine are a little wobbly, put the arm down in a different way. That touch point will increase stability. With your next inhale, turn to face forward again. As you exhale, fold over both legs back to the standing forward bend. One breath all the way in, all the way back out. And then as you inhale, come on back up to standing. And let's shift the gesture of the work a little bit. If there's a blanket on your mat, just slide it off to one side. With the right foot forward, foot is behind, but this is a short stance. So here's the difference. You're familiar with Warrior One. I have a long space between my feet in Warrior One. So in this stance, there's a small space between my feet. I'm going to hold that small space. I'm going to bend into the back knee a little bit. My left knee is bending. Hands come up in front of my heart. As I inhale, I'm going to draw the hands back and sit into this left hip. Breathing out, I'm folding over the front leg. In, I'm coming back up. Breathing out, glide forward. Breathing in, come back. Exhale, fold down. Inhale, lift up. At your own pace. A gesture called inner rivers flowing. Working to harmonize all of the meridian lines in the inner thighs and in the front line of the body. Because of the softer, more fluid nature of this movement, there's not a lot of gripping, there's not a lot of hard stops and quick starts. Can you let the movement of your breath inform the movement of your body here? As you move, notice what's happening inside of your mouth. Where is your tongue and what is it doing? Can it be soft, wherever it is? There's no wrong placement for the tongue. Can it just be gentle and soft? Now, the next time your hands come toward your chest from either direction, pause there. Switch the placement of your feet. The right leg is behind, the right knee bends. Let's go back to that cycle of movement. Exhale forward, inhale back. Exhale, fold down. Inhale, lift up at your own pace. And you may notice the changing sensations of the body here. There's a little bit of hamstring stretch, a little bit of hip alignment that shifts, stretching and strengthening. You may notice sensations across the lower back, especially as you fold forward. One more time, one more cycle through. And the next time you have your hands in front of your heart, pause, step the feet together. Breathing in, let's reach the arms forward and up alongside the ears, lengthening the body. As you breathe out, fold all the way down, dropping your hands to the floor, which might mean bending your knees. And then step one foot back and then the other. We're going to come down onto the floor, lying belly down. There are several ways to practice this next sequence of postures. The purpose is to strengthen the back and to open up the chest. So this will be a back bending posture. Let me show you the simplest version first. So you can stack your hands one on top of another out in front of you. Rest your forehead on your hands. Let your legs extend behind you. This is a very, very simple back bend. It might not feel like you're doing much, but you are shaping the curve of the lumbar spine. And for many practitioners, especially if there's been any kind of a back or spinal injury, this might be the best back bend for you. So just feel the simplicity here. Settle into your breath. Feel the belly rise and fall. If you want to lift a little bit higher, the next phase is to lift your chin off of your hands. You're pressing your arms down into the floor. And now you're engaging the arms. You might feel the armpits deepen and they're hollowing. You're going to press the front of your pelvis down a little against your mat and draw your tailbone toward your heels. And you'll feel the pelvis tuck a little or come into a different alignment. From there, you can bring your elbows to the floor, hands out in front. Your front bottom ribs are still touching the floor. And you can breathe more freely up into the chest and collarbones. This is the first version of a posture called Sphinx pose. The second version, if you want to lift higher, is to bring the elbows back under the shoulders. Now the front bottom ribs lift off the floor. Glue your forearms to your mat. And as you draw your tailbone toward your heels, pull your elbows back in the same direction without letting them move. Lift up into the crown of your head, a strong openness in the front body, strength gathering in the back. Shoulder blades move toward each other and down a little bit, just turning on some of the upper back muscles. The final version of this posture for some who want to work harder is to lower the ribs to the floor, bring your hands back under your shoulders, and essentially do the same thing. Pull back with the hands, lift the rib cage, open your heart forward, push up a couple inches, pull the hands back, heart moves forward, up a couple inches, hands pull back, heart moves forward. So whether you're working with a very, very mild back bend, head on the hands, or the more intense back bend where you're lifting and opening the chest higher, stay and breathe. Breathe to nourish your lower. I'm seeing a message flicker every once in a while that my internet connection is unstable. So if you're having trouble, I apologize for that. I'm going to slow down a little bit. At the end of that second breath, lower your whole body down to the floor. Rest your forehead on your palms and just pause there for a moment. Breathe. It's helpful in some of the back bending postures to consider what are we strengthening for and what are we opening to. And that will help us determine how strenuous or soft the posture needs to be in that moment. If we're opening to something challenging because it's what we've chosen, we may feel that sense of working hard physically. If we're trying to open to backing off a little bit, being softer in our lives, in our work, in our schedules, in our relationships, it may be helpful to practice a softer version of the posture. What does that feel like when I'm not always engaged, when I'm not over engaged? As you lie here, let your knees bend, your feet will be up in the air, and just let your feet rock from side to side, releasing any tensions that may build in the lower back when we back bend. And slowly lower your legs all the way back down to the floor, rolling to one side, come up to a seated position. For our last two postures, we'll use the blanket that I had suggested that you start with. So if you have it so that it's folded, you may not be able to see this really well, but this is a folded edge. That's where I want to sit. The other edge has all the loose ends. So I'm going to put the blanket down and I'm going to sit on that folded edge. So my tailbone's on the blanket, but I'm kind of spilling forward. I'm going to bring the soles of my feet together. Hold on to your feet or your ankles or your knees. Baddha Konasana, bound to angle pose, holding on with your hands lengthen upward, and then slowly let the elbows bend and start to gesture forward, a stretch for the inner thighs. This is another place where if you were out on skis or snowshoes or just walking in snow this weekend, you might feel it here. So allow that sensation to arise and subside, breathing in, aware of breathing in, aware of the body filling, pausing at the top of the inhale, and then breathing out, aware of breathing out, feeling the gesture of release, the strength available at the bottom of that, and the yielding that's also present. Let the breath come and go. When you reach your next inhale, lengthen back up to a seated position. Placing your hands on the floor, slide off of your blanket. I'm going to bring the blanket a little closer now because I'm going to have you roll it up in a particular way. Some of you may have a bolster. You are absolutely welcome to use the bolster. I'm going to demonstrate with a blanket because I know everyone has a blanket somewhere at home. So if you have the bolster, use that instead. If you have the blanket, have it folded somewhat like this, kind of a rectangular shape. And then place it on the floor. Take the loose edges and roll them over on themselves until you have a bolster-like shape. There's this long tube. You're going to place the tube on your mat lengthwise. Take the head end, so the one that's closer to the end of your mat, and just bunch it up a little bit. If your blanket is very thick, this might not work. You may not have a bunch. If your blanket is loose enough, just kind of make a little fold at the top. This is where your head's going to go. We're going to sit in front of your blanket so that your lower back or the back of your pelvis is touching. And then you're just leaning back, walking your hands along with you if you like. Adjusting the bunch, mine is not in the right spot, so I've got to kind of fold it under a little differently. So now I just feel like I have some support for my neck. It doesn't have to be a big bunch. Your feet can be together with your knees apart, like we just practiced in the seated bound angle, or you can extend your legs. Arms down by your sides. Now, as you lie here, before we completely settle in, just take your fingertips and tap them over the top of your chest, right along the collarbones and then down toward the sternum where the ribs attach to the breastbone. Just gently investigating what's happening in the muscles of the chest. If it feels good, you can tap up the sides of your neck. Just be gentle with your fingertips. There are some sensitive structures in the neck. This should feel good. If it doesn't feel good, avoid it. And then back down to the chest again. Take a full breath in. At the top of that inhale, just release your arms, pause and hold the breath in for a moment, and then slowly and completely exhale. Feel the back of your body melt into the support of your blanket or bolster. Notice all of the points in the back of your body that touch something, the floor, the blanket. Can you rest into those touch points, places where no effort is required because they're already supported, and as such, they provide support for the parts of the body that are not touching. Feel the breath come and go. And as you lie here, I will share a Mary Oliver poem. White owl flies into and out of the field. Coming down out of the freezing sky with its depths of light, like an angel or a Buddha with wings. It was beautiful and accurate, striking the snow and whatever was there with a force that left the imprint of the tips of its wings 5 feet apart, and the grabbing thrust of its feet, and the indentation of what had been running through the white valleys of the snow. And then it rose gracefully and flew back to the frozen marshes to lurk there like a little lighthouse in the blue shadows. So I thought, maybe death isn't darkness after all, but so much light wrapping itself around us, as soft as feathers, that we are instantly weary of looking and looking and shut our eyes, not without amazement, and let ourselves be carried as though through the translucence of mica to the river that is without the least dapple or shadow, that is nothing but light, scalding, aortal light, in which we are washed and washed out of our bones. On this longest night of the year, where we find the apex of darkness, can we also see and feel in that the promise of light? What is it that you want to breathe life into? What is it that you want to ignite? Kindle that small flame. Let it begin here. And gently begin to deepen your breathing, letting the next breath come in a little bit fuller than the one before it. And just feeling your way out into and through the layers of the body and the self. As your breathing deepens, notice what might like to move. And then allow that movement to emerge, maybe in your fingers, maybe in your head or neck or feet. And as your breathing deepens and the movement builds upon itself, roll over to one side, remembering that your spine is elevated a little bit. And make your way gradually back to a seated position. And as you fold your body back into its seat, connect once again with your breath. Feeling for whatever it is that you might like to leave and whatever it is that you might like to carry forward. And as we bring this portion of our practice to a close, may all beings be free from suffering and the roots of suffering. May all beings know happiness and the roots of happiness. Thank you so much for practicing tonight. Happy solstice. Namaste. So now that we have wrapped up our practice together this evening, it's so different not to be seeing you as we go, but thank you very much for practicing, and I hope you have a chance to check out some of the other offerings that are happening at the Harp Soul Heritage Land Trust today and this week. Take good care, happy holidays, and I hope to see you all soon.